She didn't. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Sugar Land City Council meeting for Tuesday, May the 18th. A little bit about our agenda tonight. We're going to do an invocation. That'll be William. And then we'll also do a pledge. And William Ferguson will do that for us too. Then we'll go straight into recognitions. We've got 4 recognitions tonight. And then we'll get into the main part of the agenda. So William, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. Let us pray. Father, we come to you tonight to say thank you, to say that we are grateful for this opportunity to lead this amazing city. Father, we are mindful of this opportunity we have, and we seek your wisdom. We always want to seek justice. We always want to think in ways that will lead this city to success. Father, we are so humbled by this opportunity. Watch over us as we make these decisions tonight so that you will be glorified. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Let's say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Our first proclamation tonight is 2021 Bike Month. And I'm going to ask Monique Johnson, our Transportation and Mobility Innovation Manager, to introduce the topic for us.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to invite Crystal Lestrap. She is our Transportation and Mobility Analyst who works with me on all things mobility. So every year the city celebrates National Bike Month in May. And this year we're doing something a little bit different. You know, we're giving people an opportunity to take a tour around the city at their leisure throughout the month of May. Each week we'll feature a different tour. This week we're featuring the Central City Tour, so that takes you around Town Square, Lake Point area, and some of the trails and neighborhoods in the area. And so what we really want to do is encourage people to ride their bike, but also let them know that you can ride in Sugar Land. You can ride to destinations. There are routes out there. But of course, most importantly, we want people to be safe. And so we provide some safety information for them, as well as directions around the city. And so we just wanted to celebrate this year by giving people an opportunity of all ages and abilities to go out and tour Sugar Land by bike.
We appreciate everyone that took the first 2 tours, the first week and this week. So we're looking forward to next week and the last week of Bike Month. Thank you.
And we've got a proclamation for Bike Month, May 2021. Whereas since 1956, May has been recognized as National Bike Month and was established to encourage people to ride for fun, exercise, transportation, and to promote safe bicycling. The City of Sugar Land will celebrate National Bike Month throughout the month of May. And whereas celebrating National Bike Month raises awareness of the need to create safer routes for bicycling and walking, promote awareness of cycling, and remind motorists, pedestrians, and cyclists to be safe and to share the roads, trails, and sidewalks. And whereas the City of Sugar Land is joining the efforts of the League of American Bicyclists and Bike Texas by providing a variety of self-guided bicycle tours in various locations throughout our city for people of all ages to participate each week throughout the month of May to celebrate National Bike Month. Thank you all. I'm going to pass the proclamation to you all. I'm going to ask council to come down and get some pictures. Mike, that includes you. Y'all can get centered right there, and then council will get in behind you.
All right, everyone, be right here, looking good. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Last one. 1, 2, 3. All right, got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second recognition tonight is Mental Health Awareness Month, and to help me with that, Chandra Holmes, our Employee Engagement and Wellness Manager, is on the screen. There you are. Chandra, would you like to introduce the topic for us?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. I have myself as well as Courtney Peel. I'm the Employee Engagement and Wellness Manager, and Courtney Peel is the Wellness and Engagement Coordinator. So May is Mental Health Month, and we just ask that you join us in spreading the word about mental health. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a profound impact on mental health of people of all ages. And now more than ever, it is critical to reduce the stigma around mental health struggles, because the stigma often presents individuals from seeking help, and it hinders them in their ability to adapt after trauma and stress. So we just ask that you join us in spreading the word about mental health, especially this month, as we just try to create and give awareness.
Thank you, Chandra. Courtney. We have a proclamation, Mental Health Awareness Month for May of 2021. Whereas May is a time to raise awareness of those living with mental or behavioral health issues and to help reduce the stigma so many experience. And whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, all Americans face challenges in life that can impact their mental health, especially during a pandemic. And whereas prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental health conditions, and there are practical tools that all people can use to improve their mental health and increase resiliency. And whereas mental health conditions are real and prevalent in our nation, with effective treatment, those individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen share the burden of mental health problems and have a responsibility to promote mental wellness and support prevention and treatment efforts. And Chandra, Courtney will get you this proclamation. At this time, council, if you'd come back down, Mike, and we'll do a
All right, looking great. All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Last one. 1, 2, 3. All right, that's great. Thank you.
Our third recognition tonight is National EMS Week, May 16th through the 22nd of 2021. And I'm going to ask Chief Boker, our fire chief, to come down and introduce the topic. Doug?
Thanks, sir. I'm going to ask a few of my closest friends to come join us. And I've been put on a tight time frame by Thomas that this cannot take 1 second longer than 20 minutes. So, okay.
You're going to be fine, council. We'll be in the back.
So in 1974, Gerald Ford thought it would be a good idea to recognize the efforts of EMS. And tonight, I want to talk about our EMS department. So in 2015, it was City Council's guidance that put us into the EMS business. City Council invested heavily in our EMS department and believed in us and put a lot of trust in us to provide it. And probably no year in my 32 plus or minus years of fire and EMS combined experience has EMS been as tough as it was this year. And every EMS agency was hit hard with COVID, and Sugar Land's no different. We had employees catch COVID despite the efforts of the city and the department to protect our employees. We had some employees catch it multiple times. We have some employees that are still today suffering from long-term effects of multiple COVID diagnosis. With that, every day they come to work and they put their mask back on and they serve our citizens. I've never seen the heroism and and just the dedication to the job that our employees have shown this year. So it's not just that we've done COVID. We could have very easily this year sat back and just said, hey, we're in the COVID business, we're not going to do anything. I wanted to highlight some of the other successes that we've had this year and start here with Michael Dimitri and Scott Bowerman. They've put a program together for us that it addresses active shooter, active killer events. Michael has put together a program that has departments as far as San Antonio calling us, and we put them on loan to the not as nice a place as Sugar Land to go teach their class. And it's in the city. They've taught it to PD, to all the fire, and it will culminate this fall with a full scale exercise to make us even more prepared, hopefully to never use it. Chief King, that you'll recognize, we hired Chief King to set up EMS, and we've most recently tasked her with compliance and community outreach, and she's done a phenomenal job for us this year in putting together the Heart Healthy program. Heart Healthy was a program that helped us look into the community in that how can we affect change, not just by going to a 911 call, but how do we affect the person in their eating habits, to the bystander CPR, to how we provide care, all the way to how we interface with the hospitals. Heart Healthy, she single-handedly pushed through, and it was adopted by our local RAC, SETRAC, and so it's not just a Sugar Land plan. That will affect change in 26 counties, and Sugar Land's the first recipient of that award because of the work she's done. And then finally, it's not just programs and education. Cody Goodman is the first guy in the field. He did a needle thoracostomy on a fella that he had met a bullet, probably not by design, and he was checking out pretty quickly. And because of the investment the city has made and the training that we've been putting into these guys, if you know what an intercostal space is, find the second one. That's where he'll stick that needle, and that lets the pressure out of the lungs. So an otherwise person that was going to die lived to see another day, and that's the quality of our employees. That's based on this council's investment and the continued investment. We appreciate the support and the trust you've put in us.
Well, we appreciate your commitment, and we appreciate the hard work that you all have done and the recognition you brought to the city of Sugar Land, and not only the city of Sugar Land, but to you all as individuals. We've got a proclamation. That's not a surprise, is it? Emergency Medical Services Week, May 16th through the 22nd of 2021. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventive medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And we want to thank you for your commitment to not only the city of Sugar Land, but the state of Texas as well. And Doug, I'm going to let you hold this, council members. I'm gonna ask y'all to come down. Mike? Cindy, could you next to Doug, over there? And then if I could pull you over here, so we get you on this side of Cindy. There we go, balance it out a little bit. Here we go. All right, council members, if you could get, just kind of line up somewhere.
All right, great, everyone looking good? All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Last one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
Good work, Steve.
I'm the owner, so I know what you do. Say something like this, sir.
Oh, that's what yours are. You know that.
Here at work.
Have a seat down here. Yes, sir. Brian must be on the screen. Our next recognition is National Public Works Week. And I'm going to ask Brian Butcher, our Director of Public Works. Brian, congratulations on your promotion. And Brian's going to introduce the topic for us. Brian?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This week marks the 61st year that the American Public Works Association has recognized the third week in May as National Public Works Week. It's a week designed to recognize the men and women in our profession for their hard work and dedication. Every year, this week has a theme. This year's theme was Stronger Together. The theme is intended to highlight the impacts we can have on our citizens when we all work together. We put together a video this year to help celebrate this week, whereby a number of us were asked why we got into public works and what motivates us and what keeps us here, working for our citizens. I'm going to ask Jake to play that video, and then Mayor, I'll turn it over to you for the proclamation. I do want to point out one thing. None of us knew the questions we were going to be asked beforehand, and I think that the fact that you'll hear similar responses from all of us really helps drive home that we are stronger together and we're all working toward a common goal. So with that, Jake, can you roll the footage? My dad was also in the public works industry. He was a 30-year TMRS person. And when thinking about why I personally got into public works, there's no doubt that his inspiration is what drove me here.
Well, back when I started in 2000, started in Fleet, which was at that time part of public works.
I love the fact that I get to come to work with people that I enjoy being around, the teamwork and camaraderie.
You get to do multiple different things. It's never the same thing.
I liked it a lot because it's new, something I don't know, and it's a lot more than just fixing big lines in the ground.
You've always got work to do. You're never going to be bored. Every day's different.
There's something refreshing to learn.
While we have to be experts in pouring concrete, we have to be experts in treating water, we have to be experts in drainage and outfalls, experts in mowing, we also deal every single day with our citizens on a one-on-one basis.
We do this for them, and that they're most important to us.
You know, being able to come to work every day and help people.
People that come together and they help one another for the better of the city,
The term public works is defined uniquely within every city.
Public works is basically a service to the community.
Public works to me is just providing services to the public, essential services. Making sure the public has the water we need.
The things that we do have direct impacts in a very positive way.
It's dedication, it's teamwork, it's sacrifice for all the right reasons.
And if I have any message to my staff or to anyone out there, it is you are an expert in what you do and you're very good at it, and the impacts you're having are very positive.
we do a great job in making sure that it gets done and the way that it should be done.
We put a lot of effort and time into what we do.
A lot of times before things get better when we're working in a neighborhood, they're going to get worse. And we're going to make a mess. But in the end, it's going to be nice. They're going to have a nice sidewalk, a nice road, infrastructure well maintained. We're there 24/7, just like police and fire, making sure the streets are clear, street lights are working, water is flowing.
We can affect the community in a positive way.
We're Public Works, and we're better together.
We're Public Works and we're better together.
We're Public Works and we're better together.
We're Public Works and we're better together.
We are Public Works and we are better together.
Very cool, Brian. Thank you. We don't get to see you and your staff because you guys are actually out in the field, actually doing work, and that's probably why you're not here at council tonight. But what I want to make sure that you convey to all the men and women that are in our public works group is how much we appreciate what they do, because they are the men and women that touch our customers probably more than anybody else day in and day out. And you guys are the ones that kind of work in the shadows, so to speak. Don't get a lot of credit. It's not talked about. It's not fancy, but it's essential work. And sometimes it's really hot when it's out there. Sometimes it's raining. It doesn't make any difference. Sometimes it's a hurricane. Sometimes it's a pandemic. And you guys have to carry on through that. So tell everybody how much we appreciate what they do.
Enforcer, thank you very much.
We've got a proclamation, National Public Works Week, May 16th through 22nd, 2021. Whereas the year 2021 marks the 61st Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, Canadian Public Works Association. And whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities, and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Sugar Land. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public work professionals, all levels of the organization who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, rights of way, and traffic facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Sugar Land to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. Brian, thanks for everything that you and your department do.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and return to the main agenda. Item number 1 is public comment. Anybody that wants to speak on one of the agenda items listed is allowed to speak at this time. Thomas, have we had anybody sign up?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas. Item number 2, the consent agenda. We're going to take all these as one motion unless a council member wants to pull an item, in which case we will take all the other items as one motion, then we'll have a brief presentation from the staff. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I've got a motion by Nishad. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Carol. If you'll all vote at this time, please. And it passes by a 7-0 margin. Thank you. Council members. Item number 3, contracts and agreements. 3A, consideration of an action on authorization of a professional services contract with Friesen Nichols, Inc. in the amount of $1,458,104 for the Austin Park Chimney Stone Drainage Improvement, CIP CDR 2101, and a budget amendment in the amount of $258,104 to CIP CDR 2101, we have Jorge Alba, our Senior Engineering Manager, and Ross Woodfin, our Senior Project Manager. Jorge, Ross?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We are here tonight to request City Council approval of the design contract with Fritz & Nichols for the Austin Park and Chimney Stone Drainage Improvement Project. So let me start with a little background of this project. Right after Hurricane Harvey, the city and Fort Bend County Lead 2 performed a drainage study of Austin Park, Settlers Grove, Chimney Stone, to determine, basically to identify the solutions to minimize the street funding and reduce the risk of the structural flooding that we have seen during Hurricane Harvey and other storm events. So we evaluate several alternatives to identify the most feasible and cost-effective solutions. And we find out after this study that both the levee district has to do a portion of the improvements and the city has to do another portion that included the storm sewer system improvements and coordinate outflow improvements within the Fort Bend County Lead 2 and Sweetwater Country Club. Next, please. So this is the area of the project, and I'm going to explain briefly how the drainage works in this area. So within Lead 2, the natural drainage goes from the northwest to the southeast, draining across the levee district. So in this particular area, the way this area is drained, basically all the storm waters goes from east to west to collect the water across Settlers Way Boulevard into Ditch C, which is the ditch that is right there between Williams Trace and Settlers Way. So what we have seen is that, or what the story recommends, is to split this drainage area into two parts. Anything to the west of Settlers Way Boulevard will continue draining toward Ditch C, and anything to the east of Settlers Way Boulevard will now be draining toward the new proposed concrete light channel that runs from close to Highway 6 south to Commonwealth Boulevard, and it will connect into Ditch A, into the existing outflow of Ditch A, the Lead to Ditch A outflow. Next, please. So for this project, we advertised and we received in September 2020, 25 statement of qualifications. All of them very good, from all of them very good companies in the Houston area. So we interviewed the top 3 ranked firms out of that evaluation that was performed by the engineering department and the public works department. The top 3 firms that were ranked were Fritz & Nichols, Half Associates, and Dannenbaum Engineering. So the reason we selected Fritz & Nichols, besides that they have a very good statement of qualifications, they also have extensive drainage experience in this area. Actually, they were the ones who performed the initial study that the city and Lead 2 performed after Hurricane Harvey. They also have conducted several drainage studies for Lead 2 and for the city since 2018, and currently they are the drainage engineer for the levee district, which will facilitate all the coordination with the levee district at this time for the design of this project. Next, please. So with this, I am going to let Ross Woodfin, who is going to be the project manager, discuss in more detail the project scope. Ross?
Yes, thank you, Rory. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the project scope, we're looking at construction of a new storm drainage outfall into Lead 2 Ditch A, storm drainage improvements for the Austin Park subdivision along Acacia Drive, a 9x8 reinforced concrete box storm drainage conveyance system along Commonwealth Boulevard or Acacia Drive, and a concrete line drainage channel within the city-owned right-of-way east of the Settlers Grove and Chimney Stone subdivisions starting at Austin Parkway, extending 4,900 feet north towards State Highway 6. Next slide, please. In the project design scope, some of the basic services include project management and coordination, data collection and review, hydrologic and hydraulic analysis, 60 and 90% review submittals, final design bid-ready construction documents, and bid phase services. Next slide, please. Some additional services in the design scope include surveying and mapping, subsurface utility engineering, geotechnical engineering, closed circuit TV of the storm sewer on Acacia Drive, environmental study, and public engagement support. Next slide, please. As part of the public engagement, as we routinely do, we'll be sharing the project information with the homeowner associations, coordinating throughout design with Fort Bend County Led To and Sweetwater Country Club, and with the Fort Bend School District coordinating with adjacent schools with their transportation operations. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jorge to continue.
Thank you, Ross. Next, please. So, Mr. Mayor, council members, so for any drainage project, the same as for any other CIP project, city staff is always trying to obtain funding from any other agencies. After Hurricane Harvey, we actually identified several drainage priorities within the city, and we applied for several programs such as the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, Texas GLO, and Texas Water Development Board Flood Infrastructure Fund. So for this specific fund, we applied with 3 drainage projects that we identified as priorities back in June 2020. Out of those 3 projects, and we were competing with more than 300 other projects across the entire state to obtain funding, we were approved for the Austin Park Chimney Stone. Actually, we received the pre-approval, or what we call the acceptance for the bridge applications on October 2020. On June 2020, and we submit a full application for this project on October 2020. Just earlier this month, on May 6, 2021, we received the full approval from the Texas Water Development Board of Directors for the funding of this project. So I submitted, the engineering department submitted an FYI to City Council on April 23rd, 2021, which actually described exactly all the application procedure and everything that was accounted for on the selection of this project. But out of the $16.5 million total budget that we have for design and construction, we were eligible for a total funding with a 0% interest 30-year loan. This is going to represent approximately $7.6 million of savings over the life of the loan based on a 30-year maturity schedule and the current interest rate that we have. With this funding from the Texas Development Board, we were able to combine what we currently plan for 2 construction phases for FY22 and FY23 into 1 construction phase that we can start in FY22, soon after we have the project design. Next, please. So, including in this, and that's the reason for the budget amendment, we have additional services. Since we are going to combine 2 phases into 1, it requires additional engineering right at this time. So we are going to have to do additional surveying and mapping, subsurface and utility engineering, geotechnical engineering, and as a requirement from the Texas Water Development Board, we need to do environmental determination and a feasibility report before we start with the actual design. Next, please. So the available fund from CIP CDR 2101 is $1.2 million for design. We are requesting a budget amendment of $258,104. This is actually an advance or a reallocation of funding from FY22 to FY21 to cover all this additional design that I mentioned before. This cost required to complete the project in phase 1 instead of having to do it in 2 phases. The FY22 funding will be reduced by the same amount of $258,104. So at the end of the day, the total amount of design and construction of the project is going to remain the same. Just that we are going to reallocate that money from FY22 to FY21. So the total professional service contract is going to be for $1,458,104. If City Council approve this contract tonight, we will issue notice to proceed on June 2021, and we expect to have design completed by September 2022, so we can proceed to the selection of the construction company that is going to start the construction of the project in FY22. As I mentioned before, instead of doing it in 2 phases as we were planning originally, we are going to have it done in 1 single phase. Next, please. So with this, we request City Council to authorize the execution of a professional services design contract with Fries and Nichols for the Austin Park Chimney Stone Drainage Improvement Projects, CIP CDR 2101, in the amount of $1,458,104, and the approval of a budget amendment in the amount of $258,104. With this, if City Council have any question, next please. If any, City Council has any questions?
Jorge, just a comment. This is part of the bonds that we did. This is the drainage, the general obligation bonds that we did in 2019, part of the 91 million, if you will. This also goes a long way to fulfilling the commitment that we had to Chimney Stone and Austin Park after the Harvey, the flooding, the 237 houses that we had. Not all of them were there, but the majority of them were. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Questions? Council? Ms. Shaw.
Jorge, you mentioned that we need to pull forward the 258 or 48,000 into this year, but the project doesn't complete until September of 2022. Do we need to pull forward, or can we not just wait until it's approved in 2022 budget and then bring that forward? I see Jennifer's on as well.
That's right. And I'll let Jennifer take over that question if you don't mind.
Sure.
Sure. We need to have the funding appropriated in order for you to award this contract. And we will be reducing the FY22 appropriation for construction by the same amount. But we do need to have this funding in place in order for you to award the contract.
Okay.
Even though it won't be spent until next year, it'll carry over.
Okay. I've got one more there.
Go ahead.
The $16.5 million that you mentioned, that's part of the GEO bond, I'm assuming, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good. No other questions.
Mayor,
Stewart, and then William.
as this project is in District 3 and it's going to help keep my neighbors' homes dry, I'd like to have the privilege of moving that we approve.
Okay. William, go ahead.
My question is all related to hurricane season. Given that we may start this in June and it's going to last until next year, how is that going to affect our drainage into hurricane season this year?
Okay, so, well, as I mentioned before, Lead to, Bourbon County Lead to already moving forward with the construction of the new pump station. What that pump station actually is doing is increasing the amount of pumping that they can do once the river is at a higher elevation and they have to close the gates. So they're already going to have that pump station ready to go in the next couple of months, so that will help us quite in a tremendous way. But in addition to that, we already just finished a job on Settlers Park also, improving the stormwater systems in that area. Actually, Ross was the project manager for that project, and they are being completing construction in the next couple of months. So all these projects are coming along, they are all tying together. And the reason we have to wait on this one to start after Lead 2 has completed the pump station, because the way we are going to deliver that water to Dish A is more efficient and in a better way, and faster. But they didn't have the pumping capacity to get rid of that water, we'll have to create a worse program. So we had to wait until the Lead has completed the improvements or the construction of the new pump station and the improvements of Dish A before we can tie to their outflow.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Second the motion.
I've got a motion, I've got a second by Kermali, got a motion by Jacobson. Any other questions? Vote at this time, please. And it passes a 7-0 vote. Item number 3B, consideration of an action on authorization of a contract with Johnson Technical Services Incorporated, DBH ATS, in the amount of $640,455.55 through the Texas Department of Information Resources contract number DIR TSO 3965. A contract with Sequel Data Systems, Inc. in the amount of $427,780 through the Texas Department of Information Resources contract number DIR TSO 4167 for the purchase of materials for the High Site Communication Improvement Project, CIP CMU 2004, and a budget amendment in the amount of $1,874,774 in revenues and expenditures to CIP CMU 2004. And we have Ms. Andrea Broughton, our Assistant City Engineer, and she's actually going to make a presentation for both B and C. We'll take each motion separately, and I'll read, once she's finished with the presentation, and we've gone through the B motion, I'll read C and we'll take action on that. Andrea.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I appreciate this opportunity to review this and present this for you guys. As the mayor said, this evening we are proposing and recommending the approval of three separate contracts, 2 material contracts and 1 installation contract, and a budget amendment. Just to start off, give you a little bit of background, following up to our approval of the advanced funding agreement at the meeting on May 4th. The high-side communication infrastructure, as we know, is needed to operate the traffic signal systems, the license plate recognition program for the police department, and the SCADA infrastructure, which is the supervisory control and data acquisition system that helps automate and monitor our water and sewer facilities throughout the city. In the recent past, staff has identified that high-side communications infrastructure has reached the end of its useful life. Based on this realization, we did have an opportunity back in 2018 to apply for, and we were actually granted receipt of the federal 80/20 grant, where federal funds support 80% of the material purchase, and the city will actually support only 20% of that material purchase. And as previously stated, we did pass a resolution on May the 4th, resolution number 2105, and that was approved to permit the city to enter an agreement, an advanced funding agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation. Next slide. As we've reviewed before, this is a map of the 8 locations that will receive the material upgrades as part of these 3 contracts we are bringing forth this evening. Next slide. So the procurement procedure that we are going to be using for these contracts is actually a Texas Department of Information Resources, or DIR. We chose this procedure based on, it provides us the buying power of the state. It's kind of a statewide contract that allows smaller agencies to take advantage of competitive prices. It allows us to procure IT products and services at the aggressive discounts, and we don't have to wait for the lengthy procurement process. It does comply with all the state purchasing requirements, which is in alignment with our procurement processes as a city. And then the process provides eligible agencies to, really benefit from the cost savings for smaller local projects. This project, as stated before, requires 3 separate contracts. Next slide, please. Just to give a little bit specific of the scope of contracts, the 2 material purchase contracts and 1 material installation contract are as follows. The first material purchase contract is with JTS. Within this contract will include radio equipment, access point equipment, subscriber unit equipment, and radio enclosures. The second material purchase contract is with Sequel Data Systems, Inc. It will include IE switches, patch cables, and cable testers. The third contract is the installation contract with JTS, and this will include the installation of all the materials purchased in contract 1 and 2. Next slide, please. And this is a brief summary of these 3 contracts. The JTS material purchase is $640,445.55. The material purchase contract with Sequel Data Services is $471,885.40. And the material installation contract with JTS is $409,780. Next slide, please. So regarding the project funding, the current available funds is $730,000. We are proposing and recommending a budget amendment for $1,871,774 for the total project budget of $2,601,774. Our total project cost is $1,478,110.95. With all the total project budget and the total contract cost are well over $1.5 million. At the end of the day, the city's contributions will only be 20% of the materials, which comes out to $213,666, and the installation for $409,780, which is a total city contribution of only $623,446.19. Next slide. So once, if these contracts are approved this evening, we will move forward immediately after this approval with contracts 1 and 2, and we will quickly begin and provide authorization to these contracts so they can begin the fabrication and procurement of the materials. Late summer, we will begin contract 3, which is the installation of these materials. And it's anticipated that the installation should be complete by summer 2022. Next slide, please. With that, staff requests City Council to authorize the budget amendment and execute the materials purchase contracts with JTS and Sequel Data Systems and an installation contract with JTS in the amount of $409,780 for CIP CMU 2004. And I'll be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Questions? Okay. Jennifer.
All right, is this the first time we've used the procurement process with DIR?
I believe that IT has used this process before to purchase equipment similar to this, yes.
Okay.
We regularly use DIR as one of our procurement mechanisms.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's take the first item, which is B. Item number B, consideration of an action on authorization of a contract with Johnson Technical Services, DBA JTS, the amount of $640,455, and then a contract with Sequel Data Systems in the amount of $427,780, and a budget amendment of $1,874,774. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by McCutcheon. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Lane. You vote this time, please. And it's a 7-0 vote. Now let's take the motion on item number C, which is consideration and action on authorization of a contract with Johnson Technical Services, DBA JTS, in the amount of $409,780 through the Texas Department of Information Resources contract number DIR TSO 3965 for the installation of wireless materials for high-site communication improvement, CIP CMU 2004. This is the installation portion of the other two, which were those two contracts were for materials. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Kermali. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Lane. You vote this time, please. And it passes 7-0. And at this time, I'm going to turn over the podium to the Mayor Pro Tem Jennifer Lane, who will introduce the next item.
Okay, contracts and agreements, item 3D, consideration of an action on authorization of a reimbursement agreement by and between the City of Sugar Land, Texas and John S. Beeson, trustee, for improvements associated with the park at Eldridge Public Improvement District. We have presenter Lisa Kosich-Meyer, Director of Planning and Development Services.
Good evening, Council. Before you this evening, just to start out with a little bit of background, as you may recall, at your April 6th meeting, Council approved Resolution 2104, and this was for the creation of the Park at Eldridge Public Improvement District. This district was created to finance improvements to the Park at Eldridge subdivision, which is an approximate 20-acre proposed single-family residential development located at the corner of West Airport and Eldridge Road. It is proposed for 89 patio home or zero lot line lots. As you may recall, we talked a little bit about how a public improvement district serves as an alternative to municipal utility districts. And from a standpoint of a PID being more cost-effective and more efficient than a municipal utility district, and especially in this case due to the size of this particular district. Next slide. So under Resolution 2104, it established that the developer would bear the costs of the improvements decreased by city reimbursement. And we'll go into a little bit more detail about that city reimbursement number in a few slides. But we drafted a reimbursement agreement to detail out those provisions associated with the city's reimbursement, as well as a few other terms, which we'll be covering in a few slides. For you tonight is your review and consideration of action on this reimbursement agreement for the improvements associated with the park at Eldridge PID. Next slide. So in terms of the agreement itself, there are terms that are focusing on four particular areas related to the construction of facilities, the reimbursement for those facilities, the assessment, and then the property disclosure or notice requirements. Next slide. So in terms of the construction of the facilities, the developer will pre-fund all of the costs associated with the proposed public improvements. And that includes things such as design and construction, any legal expenses, any surveying, anything required to completing the permitting process, anything that goes into the design and construction of those public improvements. Any contracts for the design and construction will be required to go through and be advertised and awarded in accordance with the competitive purchasing requirements applicable to municipal contracts. The city will also inspect and accept public facilities in accordance with all of the approved plans and specifications for those improvements. And lastly, the developer will not be charged a connection fee or any impact fees for connecting to the city's water and wastewater system for the city to provide that capacity within the system. Next slide. So in terms of the reimbursement of the facilities, the city will reimburse the developer up to $1,555,636, which is the cost of those public improvements, plus any interest that may accrue on the financing of that portion of money, up to and not exceeding $186,676. The total reimbursement would be capped at $1,742,312. The city would not be obligated to reimburse the developer until the property within the district reaches a certain value, an assessed value of $25,515,776. The city would reimburse the developer within a specific time frame of 120 days following the receipt of a written request and upon satisfaction of all of the terms of the agreement. Next slide. For the assessment, the city would levy an assessment on the property within the district based on a fee per lot basis. And that would be based on the platting status of the property as of January 1st of that year, regardless of if the development has occurred on the property. But if the property is platted, then a per lot fee would be assessed. That assessment will be set annually by City Council via ordinance and will be billed on the annual tax statement. The assessment will begin in tax year 2022, and the estimated per lot fee or assessment will be $815. Next slide. The assessment will be calculated an amount that's sufficient to meet next year's debt service payment, less a city contribution. That will be also calculated annually based on a percentage of the city property taxes collected from the property within the district. That would not exceed 50% of the property taxes collected or $52,590. That assessment rate will not exceed the term of any bonds issued for the reimbursement payment or 25 years, whichever is less or comes first. Next slide. I'll talk a little bit about the disclosure and notice provisions of the agreement. So a notice to purchasers will be required, and that is essentially a notification that they are purchasing a property within a public improvement district. This notice would be filed in the deed records and would run with the property until the district is dissolved, so for the life of the district. This notice would be given to prospective buyers, purchasers prior to the execution of a contract of sale, and that executed contract and notice would be maintained on file by each of the home builders. Lastly, before the execution of the closing documents, an updated notice with all of the updated information would also be needed to be completed by the seller and purchaser, and then that finalized document would be recorded in the county deed records as well. Next slide. We've also included some enhanced provision notices and requirements to increase the opportunity for awareness regarding the existence of the public improvement district and any of the associated property owner obligations that come with owning property within a public improvement district. And so those would require the developer to require home builders to disclose the public improvement district on any MLS listings. The developer would also install and maintain signage at the major entryways and exits, identifying the area as a public improvement district. And then lastly, the developer is required to require home builders to include any signage and information flyers about the public improvement district at any sales centers for this property. Next slide. So with that, staff recommends the approval of a reimbursement agreement between the city and John S. Deason, trustee, for the cost improvements for the Park at Eldridge Public Improvement District. I'd be happy to answer any questions from City Council.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions from council? William?
Okay, so Lisa, work with me here as I understand, because I've heard this a little. Where was it? I'm sorry, $815 is a lot. How many lots are going to ultimately be in this area?
There are 89 lots.
89. Okay, I didn't see that in there. So this PID will be paid off in how long? Is it, say, 25 years? Is that what our expectation is? Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, I believe so. And I would ask Jennifer Brown to confirm that. She ran all of the analysis for this public improvement district. Probably
this was, we built the financial model for this consistent with the enclave at River Park, which is based on a 20-year maturity. And so the maximum that we could do it for would be 25 years, but our intent would be to run it consistent with what we do on the debt that is issued, and we typically pay that off in 20 years.
Awesome. Sounds good for the city.
Any more questions from council? Suzanne?
Thank you. I had the same question, William. I asked this earlier. The assessment for the $25 million was going to be at what percentage of build out?
So the way the agreement is written, once the development reaches 80% of the anticipated value, which was the 25 million figure, then the developer, and that has to be certified by the Central Appraisal District. So that will be as of January 1 of any particular year. Then the developer can submit for the reimbursement, and then we have, I believe it's 90 days after that for us to conduct an audit and to pay the amount due.
Okay, and the second part of the question was the assessment of $815 does sound a lot and was one of my concerns for this area, but the house value is much in line with the $815, correct?
Yes, the assumptions are a house value of $400,000.
Okay, thank you.
Nishad?
Lisa, when we've had issues at Enclave at River Park, all the disclosures that you mentioned, is that going to prevent issues that we had with the residents at Enclave at River Park?
So we actually added some of these requirements, specifically related to disclosing it on any MLS listings, the installation and maintenance of the signage within the district, the entrances of the district, as well as for any requirement for signage and information flyers about this improvement district, public improvement district at any sales centers. So we've actually enhanced the requirements above what we had included originally just as part of the Enclave at River Park PID. But the notice procedures with the notice to purchasers that are required to sign during both the initial contract and then at the closing, then in addition to some of these kind of more visible notifications as well, I think will help.
Good. Now, I just, look, if I wasn't a city council member, I wouldn't know what a PID was, right? Much less a MUD. So to the layperson, they just don't know. So maybe if we spell it out a little bit more, what a PID is. I know you said signage, but as long as we're using our learnings from Enclave, then I'm good here.
Any other questions from council? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Carol and a second by Nashad. Vote at this time, please. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. 6-0.
Let's move on now to item number 4A, consideration of an action on one appointment to the Sugar Land 4B Corporation Board of Directors to an unexpired term ending September 30th of 2022. Council members, I'm going to advance the name of District 1 Council Member Suzanne Watley. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Jacobson.
Second.
Second by Kermali. You vote at this time, please. And the motion passes 7-0. Item number 4B, consideration of an action on appointments of Sugar Land City Council members to standing committees, task forces, and government agencies to a one-year term expiring May of 2022. And I've got, let me go through them. Finance and Audit, Council members Jacobson, Ferguson, and Zimmerman. Intergovernmental Relations, Council members McCutcheon, Jacobson, Zimmerman. Compensation Committee, Council members Lane, Watley, and Zimmerman. Economic Development, Council members McCutcheon, Kermali, and Zimmerman. Sugar Land 4B, Watley. Government agencies, Greater Fort Bend EDC, Zimmerman, and our city manager, Michael Goodwin. HGAC General Assembly and Board of Directors, Zimmerman is primary, Jacobson is the alternate. HGAC Transportation Policy Council, Zimmerman is primary, Lane is alternate. Sugar Land Legacy Foundation Task Force, Zimmerman and Jacobson. I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to approve. Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a second by McCutcheon? You vote this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council members. Item number 5, ordinances and resolutions. 5A, consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Resolution number 2107, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, adopting the City of Sugar Land investment policy in accordance with the Public Funds Investment Act, and City of Sugar Land Resolution number 2108, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, adopting the City of Sugar Land investment strategy in accordance with the Public Funds Investment Act. We've got Ms. Jennifer Brown, our Director of Finance. Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. This evening, I am here for the 2 resolutions associated with the Public Funds Investment Act. Since the background and context are very similar, I just have one presentation and we combine them into a single agenda item. This is for our annual review and approval of the investment policy and strategy. Next slide, please. Just a little background, the Public Funds Investment Act is located in Chapter 2256 of the Texas Government Code. We commonly call this the PFIA. It's been in place for about 25 years. It applies to cities, counties, school districts, water districts, or any other political subdivisions within the state of Texas. And it sets the parameters that must be followed by entities who are investing public funds. The Act requires annual review and adoption of written investment policy and strategy. And it also, as you did on your consent agenda this evening, requires the annual approval of broker-dealers authorized to conduct investment transactions with the city. Next slide. So for the investment policy, the requirements are, 1, that it must be written and it must be adopted by the governing body annually. The policy must primarily emphasize the safety of principal and liquidity. It must also address the investment diversification, yield and maturity of investments, as well as quality and capability of investment management. And on the annual basis, any changes to the policy must be tracked and noted in the adopted version. So you'll note that the attachment to the resolution will have the changes tracked. And that is a requirement of state law. Next slide. The city's investment policy is more restrictive than required by state law. So, for example, state law allows up to a maximum 5-year maturity. That is not something that we've been comfortable with as a city. And so our policy reflects what we are comfortable with as a city, and our financial management and our stewardship of the local funds. So that helps to ensure that our financial assets are guided by the strong protections of our city's policies and are subject to minimal risk. So we have a maximum maturity of 3 years and a maximum weighted average maturity of 18 months in our policy. Next slide. The investment strategy and these 6 objectives are laid out in the Public Funds Investment Act. And so the policy is just, it's a 1-pager on the strategy, addresses these objectives. They are in this order: suitability, safety of principal, liquidity, marketability, diversification, and yield. And so there's a little statement for each of these objectives in the strategy. Next slide. So the changes for this year, we do have minor revisions that are recommended. The first is under diversification, and so with the tanking of investment rates, of yields in the investment market, we are finding more and more of our funds in the pools. Those pools provide a lot of extra flexibility for us, and our previous policy allowed us to invest up to 75% of the portfolio in investment pools. That figure dated from a time when we had only one investment pool that we participate in. We now have 3 pools, Tex Pool, Texas Class, and Tex Star. And so the change here is that we will allow up to 50% of the portfolio in any single investment pool and up to 90% of the entire portfolio in any number of those 3 pools. And that was the 90%. I initially had recommended 100%. The Finance Audit Committee wasn't quite comfortable with that, so I was more than willing to back that down to 90%. I honestly don't think we would ever be up to 100% of our money in investment pools, so totally comfortable with making that change at their recommendation. We are also aligning our continuing education requirements with the PFIA, which requires 10 hours of training for our 3 investment officers within 12 months of taking office, and every 2 years thereafter, requiring 80 hours of training. And we previously had required 10 hours, after the initial training, and that was from an earlier version of the state law, and we just hadn't updated that, and so we are now aligning our requirements with state law. We also have several administrative changes within the policy, titles and things like that, we've recommended changing. Next slide. On the investment strategy, we are recommending the corresponding changes to the diversification section, and that would be aligning with those recommended changes to the investment policy, allowing up to 50% of the portfolio in any single investment pool, and then cumulatively up to 90% in multiple investment pools. Next slide. So I did review these 2 policy and strategy with the Finance Audit Committee at their May 7th meeting. And we discussed the requirements of the Public Funds Investment Act. They had an opportunity to provide feedback, and as you see, we did incorporate that into the final recommendation. Next slide. And so with that, staff recommends approval of resolution number 21-07 and 21-08. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Questions from the council? Anybody? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Kermali. Do I have a second? I'll make the second. Your vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council members. Item number 6, council member, city council, city manager reports. 6A, city council member reports. William, let's start with you.
Well, sir, it's been a busy weekend of a lot of fun with other council members in our community, celebrating the end of Ramadan and all the fun that has come with that. Also attended 2 events this weekend representing our dislike for hate in our community and our like for unity and love. And I was proud to be there with several of our council members, and it just had a great time. It's been a real good week in Sugar Land.
Thank you, William. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended a TML legislative update Zoom meeting. I attended the CASA 30th anniversary banquet, and I also attended a Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce Infrastructure Committee event at which Jennifer May was featured discussing the Skeeters becoming a AAA.
Astros, yeah. Jennifer.
I, along with most of the council members, attended the National Police Week's Law Enforcement Memorial Ceremony on Wednesday. It was a very beautiful service honoring those that had given their lives in the line of duty. Also attended with the mayor and Suzanne Watley the annual meeting for Venetian Estates, where they discussed their concerns, and we were glad to be there.
Carol.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members Jacobson, Kermali, Watley, and I toured the renovations at Constellation Field today, and The mayor and entire council attended the ribbon cutting for our Skeeters AAA Astros affiliate and the press conference. And looking forward to opening day on Thursday.
Yeah. Sean?
It's all been said, Mayor. No report.
Suzanne?
Thank you, Mayor. I was with you guys for most of those things, but one thing you didn't mention was graduation from Leadership 101. We took 2.5 years to get the class of 20 graduated. Our own Cindy Dees was there with us, so it was a great graduation. We finally got it done.
Yeah, that was Fort Bend Chamber Leadership.
Yes.
Just a reminder, everybody, May 20th, this Thursday, we opened the new Skeeters AAA ball with the Astros. It's going to be the place to be. Everybody in Sugar Land and around the region needs to be there. We look forward to seeing you there. Item number 6B, City Manager Report. Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to note that on May 31st, which is a Monday, the city offices will be closed for Memorial Day, and we'll have our 13th annual Sugar Land Memorial Day ceremony at Sugar Land Memorial Park from 10 a.m. till noon, and that's always a great event. Look forward to that. And just remind all of our residents, we're expecting a lot of heavy rainfall. The good folks in Public Works, PD, and Fire are ready to respond if needed. But everybody just stay smart. Don't drive through high water, please. And then just want to note, last week was our Hurricane Preparedness Week, and I had the opportunity to go around and see staff working on installing tiger dams if needed and how to bypass lift stations, and it was great seeing all the coordination. Hopefully we don't have to use that, but we are ready if needed, sir.
Better be prepared than surprised, right? Item number 7, closed executive session. 7A, closed executive session as authorized by Chapter 551 Texas Government Code in accordance with Section 551074, public officers, for the purpose of deliberations regarding appointments to and duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And item number B, Section 551087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. At this time, we're going to recess into council dining room in the president's room, I believe, aren't we? Yep.